everybody? It's Austin Holloman, your favorite YouTuber, and we are in a different setup now. As you guys can see, I am in Ciudad del Este, I believe is how you pronounce it. For the life of me, I cannot pronounce city properly, but Ciudad del Este, which is on the border of Brazil and Paraguay. And I'll be here for my birthday and a few more days following after that, and we'll see where we go next from after that. But we have a special guest today. It's somebody I met when I was traveling, and I noticed throughout the past 8 Latin American countries I've been to, I started to notice a pattern in between uh, mestizas and Afro Latinas, and or the ones that just look straight black. You know, the ones that look like they've never been mixed in and just straight African. And I started to notice in areas where we were not as prevalent that we got a different response versus when we were in areas like Salvador Bahia or Rio in Brazil, or even let's say Santiago, Chile, where blacks were more common, that it would be a more positive response in those areas. But when we were in places like Buenos Aires, Montevideo, Lima, Peru, Medellin, Colombia, it seems like a lot of black women could not hear me talking to them as if it's a facade that they're putting up. So let's go ahead and bring up our guest. She is an Afro Latina herself. I have some very well thought out questions that we're going to ask her. I've been waiting to do this interview with her. Thank you very much for coming through. And hello, how are you?
Hello, how are you, Austin?
I'm doing good. I'm doing very good. So, could you introduce yourself and tell everybody who you are, what you do, and then we'll get into the interview.
Well, hi everyone. I don't know who's listening, but I'm just, I guess, another human on the planet. I just happen to be born in Venezuela, so I do consider myself Afro Latina, even though I'm just Latina that happens to be black as well. And I'm a freelancer, I'm a social media manager, I'm just a regular person.
Okay, good, good. I'm glad we got a regular person's perspective today. So, can you tell us what
Mm.
an Afro Latina is?
Well, like I said, think I don't think Afro Latina is a term that I would use on the regular basis. I think it's just I'm Latina and I happen to be black. But I guess that's the definition of someone Hispanic that has black roots.
Okay, interesting. So that I think that's the same thing for African Americans in the United States. It's just black people that ended up over there. And guys,
Yep.
please don't start leaving comments saying we were already there. We're not going to debate about if we were there or not already. All right. So
Where are these comments? I want to read them.
no, don't read the comments because they'll distract you too much. So
Ah,
I
it's
have some good.
fine. I can take it. I'm
I know
curious.
you. I noticed that. I noticed that you're very.
Yeah,
It doesn't seem like you're too sensitive to criticism.
not
And for if
really.
anybody is wondering, this is the girl that I met. I think this was the first day I was in Lima. I met you walking down the street,
Yeah.
near the cat park. I met you while I was on live, so you guys remember. So number one, my first question is: could you share your early experiences and the messages you received about dating with
Oh,
Afro
you cut
Latino?
off. Can I have that question again? I'm sorry.
All right, froze.
Yeah, I froze.
Oh, yeah, my internet. Okay,
Yeah, mine is not
could you
great. I'm sorry.
Could you share your early experiences and the messages you received about dating within your own Afro community in Venezuela? Like, for example, what were some things as a young girl you were taught, let's say a teenager or even younger, that you were taught
Hmm.
about dating amongst your own race in Venezuela? And how did that influence your perceptions of the black men in Venezuela?
That's a good question. I don't think I was necessarily taught directly any particular message. The thing with growing up as a black person in Venezuela is that everything, the racism that I want to call it, is so ingrained in our culture that the messages are subconscious, are so ingrained in our vocabulary, in our traditions, the way that we refer to black people, let's just say like, oh, you have to I would hear things like, oh, you have to marry a white person so you can improve your race, or and that would be like a quote unquote joke. But those are the type of messages that I grew up in and listening. And I think subconsciously I started creating beliefs about, maybe Black people are not the ideal. And white people or Caucasians are a little bit more of a goal, and they're put in pedestals. So I wouldn't necessarily say that, oh, I was taught, no, you shouldn't marry Black, you shouldn't hang out around Black people. But it was an underlying current that, those subliminal messages, let's call it that way, that I would constantly receive, that made me create I believe about Black people in general.
So how did that make you treat those Black people if you had those subconscious beliefs about them?
I wouldn't treat them in a way that is particularly negative. I would just think that maybe if I can, and this is me talking about dating, dating wise. So I would think that maybe if I could get someone light skinned or a white person to date me, that would and somehow would be an achievement. That somehow that would be, oh, I got something, I got the prize, and that thought wouldn't be the same for someone that looked like me.
Wow, that's very, very interesting. Okay, so how did the advice of bettering your genetics by dating a white man affect your self-esteem personally? Like, how did that make you feel knowing that you were Black, that you felt that the white was the better the way to improve your race? How did you feel about yourself?
About myself, and this is something that I've obviously recognized and that I was able to change. But at the time when I was a young girl, I would see it as a social currency that somehow would elevate me or put me in a position socially that would benefit me. And that is something that now as an adult I recognize in myself, and I was able to change. But unfortunately, that some those are things that I still see around, and not only with with Black Latinas, but also Indigenous Latinos in general, that we just perceive white race and Caucasians as this aspirational thing, and that we could somehow get social currency to elevate us in society some way.
Okay, that's very interesting. Very interesting. Okay. So
Hmm.
my third question for you is: in what ways did these societal pressures impact your relationships with Afro men during your formative years? So you kind of touched on this a little bit more, but I guess during your teenage years, I asked you how did you treat other Black men, and you said that I guess you kind of already answered this. You
Yeah,
kind of go ahead.
yeah. I just wouldn't be particularly interested in Black men. It was just okay. They're just people. Like I said, I would never reject them or like, that's gross. I was just, no, maybe that's not my type. I maybe disguise it as, oh, that's not my type. And this is something that I saw a lot growing up. I can think of three people that I would call friends at the time that would tell me, oh, don't tell anyone I like Black men, like it's something that you shouldn't like. Or that they would tell me the opposite, like, oh, I don't like Black people. I mean, it can be your friend, but I just don't like Black men. I'm talking about women. Oh, I don't like Black men. I don't like it. And they would they would say those things to me, which I now find strange because, um, I don't know, I don't find it particularly something that you would say, like, oh, I just don't like this race. And we can go into like preferences and all of that, but to say that to someone that's Black, in a way, uh, it makes you feel like, oh, you're not desirable if you're not careful. That can that's a message that you can internalize when you have a lot of people say, oh no, I don't like Black men or Black women. So yeah, I've had people tell me that those things.
Okay, so what would you say that the other like? What would you say your family would look at you as if you did bring a Black man home?
Well, that's I don't know if I can answer that because um growing up I was bullied a lot because I was usually the only black girl around in school in my classroom, and I was bullied a lot growing up because of my skin and my hair. Um, so I didn't date a lot at all actually when I was a teenager. So I don't know if I can answer that. Like my family wasn't expecting that from me.
So they bullied you behind your hair and your skin tone.
Yeah, yeah, they would make fun of me in many ways. I find it funny now, but yeah, I got bullied because of my hair, and that's why I ended up relaxing my hair for so many years because I just wanted to have straight hair like anyone else.
So when did you come to realization that this ideology was having an impact on your personal life, your self-esteem? Like when did you realize like why am I not wearing my natural hair?
Yeah, I think it started around maybe I was 19. I'm 30 years old now, so a long time ago. So I was 19, and I just, I think it was on YouTube, a girl on YouTube. She was a natural girl from the US, and she had this channel years ago about natural hair and how she grew her hair back from relaxers. And I was like, oh, that's the thing. I didn't even know that existed because, mind you, I grew up uh, with my mom's side of the family, which are not black. So I had no clue about black hair and black anything. So that's I think that's when the journey started. To there's a different side of black culture and black things, and that we have um, characteristics that are unique to us, like our hair. And that's when I made the decision to, like, you know what, I'm not gonna straighten my hair anymore. And it took me a long time. Black hair, like curly hair, grows really slow. So it was like 2 years of not relaxing my hair and waiting for it to grow out. And at the time, nobody was doing it. Now you can see curly hair everywhere, but 12 years ago, it was like nobody was doing it. And I was like, everyone was like, what are you doing? Why do you have just crazy hair out there? So, yeah.
Yeah, it looks amazing. I think you should keep it like that. So
Thank you.
how prevalent is this mindset in your community, you would say? And are there, or let's say in Latin America, how prevalent
Hmm.
do you think this mindset that you experience is like, yeah, how prevalent do you think it is? Because I would say I noticed it at first whenever I went to, like, I always heard people talk about it in Brazil, but I never seen it because in Rio and Salvador, there's so many black people that
Hmm.
all black girls there can't have a white man, so you still see them dating black men. But when I went to Montevideo, Buenos Aires, and Lima, there was many occasions where I would have tried to, oh look, these are chicks that look like you, like light skinned Afro. And I did it on live. Some people watching right now saw it, and I would speak to them. They can't hear me talking to them, or they don't want me to talk to them at all. And then I turn around and there's a mestiza, and she gives me the time of the day like they should have. I mean, they don't have to do anything, but I'm just saying. So how prevalent it is throughout Latin America? Do you think that's very common?
I think it's common, but I think it's also getting better. People are being like more accepting. I definitely would say Venezuela is still strong on having those pseudo racist opinions about black people in general. Um, but actually, in Lima, I found a lot of acceptance. I think people are more curious here because they don't see a lot of um, black people. Um, but I think we still need some work to do for sure.
So would you say the generations you go back, it's worse, or is it more accepted the older the person is, or the younger people
Oh
have
no,
issues?
no. The older, the further you go back, the more internalized the racism is. And my father
Yeah,
would say that my father is a black man, like darker than you, and and obviously darker than me as well. Like, and he would say like the most racist people is the black people.
really.
Yeah,
What was his
in Latin
reasoning?
America, in Venezuela. because it's an internalized racism, is knowing and accepting that, oh, you are less than, and that someone that is lighter or closer to being white, and it's better, and it's how it is. You have sayings, like common things, like, ah, I'm working like a black person, or you're doing this because I'm the black one, right? Like when when you do something bad, or someone blames you for something, you're blaming me because I'm black, right? Even if you're white or black or mestizo or whatever, this is just sayings that are so ingrained in our culture that are a reflection of that internalized racism.
Okay, I could understand that completely. So the
Hmm.
next question I have is, have you encountered? So you said that they're more accepting in Lima, because I was going to ask you, have you encountered similar ideologies in other Latin American countries? What countries have you been to in Latin America?
I haven't been to like other countries in Latin America. I've been exposed to the culture through media like internet, and here you get a lot of tourism as well. So, and I worked there. I went, for a moment. I worked at a place where I interacted with a lot of tourists from all over. But yes, I have. I've been to just Venezuela, Trinidad, and Tobago, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, quickly through Colombia, Ecuador, and now here.
Okay, so would you say that it's in some areas of Latin America it may be worse? Like how would you compare that this mindset of because I'm pretty sure it's in Lima, like you said, more probably more so with the indigenous
Mm-hmm.
Peruvians. How would you
Mm-hmm.
compare it? What do you think is a big difference between the experience you had in Venezuela to what they would have in Peru?
In Peru, it's like I said, it's more of a curiosity. It's something that they don't see all the time, even though they do have. There are like black communities here. They're smaller, a lot smaller than we had in Venezuela. So here is more a curiosity thing. They've never seen like hair like mine, and they're very welcoming in that sense. In Venezuela, we're more mixed, and we had a lot of European immigrants back in the day. So there's this idea that, oh, if you're a European, that's better. That puts you in like a notch up, like a level up in some way. So yeah, I felt a rejection more. Maybe it was a personal experience. I don't know. It could be, but yeah, I felt a lot more rejection back in my country.
Okay, so let me ask you: is your mother white?
She's not white. She's like mestiza, like
Okay,
more like indigenous. Probably she has some Spain DNA there, some black too. So, but she doesn't look black for sure.
okay. So how do you think that do you think that media or let's say yeah, do you think that media plays into contributing to the racial and dating norms? Like for example, when I was in Brazil, if you turn on the TV, there was no black people on the TV, but when you walked outside, it was a lot. There was no shortage of black folks when you walked outside.
Yeah.
So do you think that media plays a huge role in keeping that ideology alive?
Especially back in the day. I feel like I'm like an old person, but yeah, early like 90s, 80s, 90s, or 2000s, early 2000s, when we didn't have social media like we have today. I think media played a big role in not having a lot of diversity shown, and people in power, especially in Venezuela, like they looked a certain way. you I don't think I've ever seen like a black person represented in the media, like it's or the government or anything like that. And I think you know uh, like a decade, 2 decades ago, yes, it definitely played a role in it. Even in telenovelas, telenovelas in Latin America are huge. So I've never seen a leading role with a black woman or a black man. Never. I don't think that exists. And if it does, well, anyone can correct me, but I've never seen like telenovela with a black person in a leading role.
I would agree. I think the only black leader I've heard of, like on a federal level in South America, was the vice president of Colombia. But
Mm,
outside of that, I
yeah,
don't think, if you look up the federal government of Brazil, there's all white people there. But Brazil's majority black. So
yeah,
there's definitely, it's definitely, the media definitely portrays it in a way where you wouldn't even think that a lot of black people are down there. I remember when I first started traveling, we had a bunch of American women like, "Oh, those are white women y'all are dealing with down there." I'm like, "What are you talking about? Like, there's plenty of white people in Latin America. Like, they had more slaves in Latin America, and they didn't send them back to Africa either." So,
yeah.
what discussions, if any, are happening within your community about overcoming racial stereotypes and promoting more inclusive attitudes for dating? Like, is there anybody bringing up a discussion on how they could fix that scenario?
I'm sure there are. I'm not familiar with anyone in particular. Maybe I've come across a few like influencers, but I don't really. I'm not really like an activist. I don't have that activist streak, but I'm sure there are. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Good. So, do you feel like there's any media that's trying to promote a solution to this? Like, there's, people trying to, like in the United States, we have people that want to encourage black people to be with other black people. Do you see that in Latin America too online?
Online, yes. I think, yeah, I think a lot of like influencers and are starting to have those conversations. So yeah, I would say so.
Yes. Sorry, what did you say? It froze at the end.
I'm sorry. Yeah, it just froze.
Yeah. What did you say at the end?
Um, I don't remember. What was
I
the
think
question again? Let me see if I can rephrase that. I don't
no. I
know.
was saying, like, do you think that there's anybody on social media in?
Oh yeah, yeah. I think there are a lot of people. I've when you scroll on social media, you definitely find people speaking about it. And if I'm gonna give you my opinion on it, I think the conversation should lean more towards leaving that victim mentality instead of okay, like forcing people to understand us and to try to um, feel because sometimes I feel that the messages come across as you have to feel pity because you treated us bad in the past, or you have to, compensate for all the things that we've been through. And I think the a more productive message would be, hey, let's understand our experiences, but from now on, let's just leave that victim mentality and try to work with the tools that we have and just try start seeing people as people and not identify so much as a skin color.
Well, let me ask you this: what is considered black in Latin America? Because I've met some people in Latin America that would be identified as a mestiza from Mexico, but they would say
Hmm.
that they're black. And I was like, yeah, if you go to the United States saying you're black, they'll laugh at you. So, what is the difference between, like, what is black there?
I, it's what you look like. I don't think it depends on, oh, it's just your ancestors and your genetics. It's just, do you look black? And if you don't look black, you're not black. And it's so it doesn't make it right because it's very subjective, because you can be the blackest person and be super light skinned, and we all know that. But that speaks on the state of the conversation here, like what is really black. So I would say it's just the way that you look like and the way that you ultimately identify with.
Okay, okay, I could understand that. So, how has your perspective of this ideology evolved over the years? You told me you've pretty much grown out of it when I met you in person. What were some pivotal
Mhm.
moments of change for you? Like, what were some key moments where you started to wake up? Like I asked you before, where you start to wear your hair natural. What are some other moments you had like that?
I had my phase of being and I don't want to fall into politics right here, but I have my moments when Obama was running for president, and that that whole thing it reaches Latin America because we're so influenced by America in general. So I was following that ideology of, oh my God, I'm a black person, and um, I've been through so much, my ancestors and slavery and all of that. So um, I would say around that time, 2008, I was learning more about it, but I was definitely leaning more towards the I'm gonna play the victim card that my people have been through so much, and the world owes me something. Um, and that was a moment where I would say, hmm, after Obama won, and so many things happened, and I was so proud of it because the first black person in the biggest nation in the world um, was a black man. So, but then after that, I started to realize that things are not black and white. There are a lot of gray areas in this subject of being a black person, and the in my very personal opinion, it's so important not to fall into a victim mentality because you're gonna get stuck.
Okay. Okay. So, could you talk about any personal or public figures besides Obama that
Hmm.
influenced your thoughts on race and dating? I know Obama was a really that probably was probably the most impactful. Would you say?
Well, but not in dating. It's just
Well, I guess it could affect dating, right? Because if you see a
it
black man in
could.
a position of power, it could change your perception.
Yeah, it could. I guess it could. Um, but yes. What affected me on dating? I think like dating for me in general is very. It's been a very personal, very unique to me experience. First understanding that, yeah, maybe my experience is going to be affected by my race because there are certain mentalities still um, uh, present in Latin America with people having, their opinions about Black people. Um, but once I understood that, okay, let's just focus on the people that are interested. And here, a lot of people that are interested are usually or white man or just foreigners. So because they're not like locals are not very interested.
Wow, locals are not very interested. That
No,
sounds bad.
I mean that's fine. I don't want no one that doesn't want me or that wants to
I could agree with that. Yeah, I don't, if they don't want me, I don't want them either.
yeah.
C Man sent $5 on Super Chat. He says, "Do you align with the divestiture movement and date white men, or do you identify as a black woman and date black men today?"
Do you like what is divestor movement?
Divestor is people that like invest is to put into something. Divest is to take away. So you're taking away from the black community by marrying out, breeding out. You know what I mean?
Mm, no, I don't think I'm taking away anything from anyone because ultimately I see myself as a human being. I don't identify with that community. I'm a human first, and I just happen to be black. And when it comes to dating, I'm just interested in humans, in persons, in character, and values. I'm not interested in, oh, let me see how much melanin does your cells have, So I'm not taking really anything away from anyone.
Okay. Okay. So have you when was the last time you say you dated a black man?
A black man. Well, I haven't dated in like 4 years.
Yeah.
But yeah. No, it was actually when I was like, I'm 30 now, maybe when I was 25. Yeah,
A black man.
a black guy.
Okay. And you have not dated in the past 4 years.
I'm sorry, I got cut off.
You said you've not dated in the past 4 years.
Yeah, yeah, since the pandemic.
Okay. Interesting. So, what support systems or resources have you found helpful in navigating and challenging societal norms, like a therapist, or have you used anything besides yourself to overcome that mindset?
A lot of personal growth. I don't, if I could, I would do therapy. I think it's helpful for everyone, but there's a lot of resources online. One of my favorites, Jordan Peterson. I listen to a lot of podcasts, with just people, industry leaders on personal growth, and just um, realizing that a lot of ideologies are put in us and beliefs are put in us by our environment. So, just leaving that box that the society puts us in. So, yeah, it's personal growth, and being intentional with the things that you listen to, and try to be smart about it as well.
Yes, exactly. So C-Man sent $5 for that was a very politically correct answer. I guess he's trying to say if you prefer white meat, say it with your chest.
I don't prefer white meat. I prefer good man. And if the man happens to be black, I welcome it.
Okay, so Ted sent $2 on Cash App. Thank you very much. And Mojo sent $25 for a great interview. Thank you very much. It is a very good interview. We have a very mature guest, and you people in the chat are very. I've never seen y'all act so childish like y'all are. Y'all are about to have a baby because I said Brazil was
Well,
majority black. Anyway,
I want to read it.
how do you approach conversations about race in dating preferences with younger generations?
I think actually younger generations, like your generation, are very open. And I was reading an article about it the other day. Like Gen Z is like the most open generation there is right now when it comes to dating. They're willing to date Indians, black, white, mestizo, like whatever. So I think they are the ones that maybe have something to teach us, like the millennials or even further back, and to be a little bit more open and to focus on the things that really matter, which are, in my opinion, values and goals. Have similar goals, similar values, and having the same view of the world. Those are the things that truly matter. It's not, are we going to have babies that are black or the same color or whatever. So, yeah.
Okay, that's a great answer. Vulcanus, thank you for the $20 super chat. I appreciate you very much. Uh, got another question. So, can you provide insight into the historical or cultural origins of this mindset within Latin America? Like, what, like, black people are criminals in the States? That image comes from old films that came out in the 1900s or,
Oh,
huh?
I'm going to connect my
I
laptop. I'm listening.
Okay, I forgot the name of the film. There was a film
Mhm.
that came out way back in like 1908, I think it was, and it was showing like black people being rapists, being criminals.
Mhm.
I don't know what the name of it is, but there was a movie that came out like that that depicted black people to look like that. So we gained those stereotypes. What would you say in Latin
Mhm.
America was that equivalent? Like what made the Birth of a Nation was the name of the movie. Birth of a Nation. It was an extremely racist movie, but what it was very racist. I seen it, but what was the?
You gotta watch it.
I would say this too. When I was dating a chick in Peru that was
Mhm.
Colombian, and somehow we got on the topic of Latinas being. She wanted to do something that was against my standards or a boundary. It was against a boundary. She wanted to do something that was very whore like. And so she's like, "Oh well, like Latinas are like this is normal for us here." And I was like, "Okay, well, like that's it can be normal, but that doesn't mean I have to fuck with you." And so
Okay, but
she's like,
what
"Well,
was it? Or you don't want to share
huh?
that? What was it? Or it's something that you prefer not to share?
No, no. She wanted to display herself online, and
Oh, okay.
I was like, yeah, no, I'm not. I'm not dealing with that. I'm not even dealing with that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we can hook up and all that, but I'm not gonna deal with you seriously ever. So, she brought up like, oh well,
Gotcha.
just because you're black, I didn't think that you were a criminal. So I was like, oh, they have that same perception of black people down here too, that we're just a bunch of criminals. So where do you think that comes from? Like, how did that in Latin America? What is a black man's reputation and how did that come about?
Well, I don't know if this is the same in like every country in Latin America, but I don't know the origins of it, but I've definitely heard something like that here in Peru. Something that I've never really heard back in Venezuela, but here, people refer to like criminals or sketchy people as negros. Like, oh, there are some negros over there, and I don't really know where that comes from. So I don't know. It's not like in the United States where you have black neighborhoods or anything. No, it's different because here everyone's kind of a little bit mixed. So you have in the barrios, you have people from all ethnicities. So, but I don't really know mm, where that necessarily comes from historically. I know that at one point in history, at least in my country, there was this program called like the whitening of society in like 40s, 50s, whatever, where they brought a lot of Europeans to the country to whiten it. Um, but I don't know if from that, people started to get the idea that, black people are criminals. I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either, but I will tell you a couple things that I learned was like
Hmm.
in Argentina, they sent black people to war so they would kill them off that way, but then they limited how much success a black they get basically limited black men to have the lowest level of success where their women would be pretty much forced to date somebody that could actually provide for them, and that led to them
Mm.
mixing them out way. And in Brazil, when they liberated slaves in Brazil, 80% of the population was African slaves. And of course, they were intimidated by that. So they actually encouraged the whole whitening the race. So they encouraged that everybody mix. That's why Brazilians look the way how they do now. And they Italian and German
Yeah.
immigrants from Europe. So for people that are saying like, oh, like Brazil is like 10% black, I mean, I don't think that they breeded all of them out like that. But I mean, I don't
Hmm.
expect I'm expecting too much from some of y'all in the comments anyway. So can you provide insight into the historical or cultural or okay, I already asked you that. Damn it, I just asked you that. Okay. What role do you think education plays in changing these deeply ingrained societal beliefs? Like do you think in the education system they're trying to work out these deeply ingrained mindsets that you need to breed out?
I think there has to be a change because if you're interested in history, and this is something that I think we talked about it when you were here, I'm also kind of like learning history and interested in history. And one of the things that you're going to find when you start learning about Latin America historically and the role Spain and the empire of the in Spain, the Spaniards had over us, and this is I don't know if there's an expert in history on the chat, but this is kind of like a touchy subject because history is being taught in Latin America in a way where Spaniards are portrayed in a negative lens. And there's something called the Black Legend of the Spain history. And when you look into it and you see the true history of that empire and the reasons that they came here and all the tools and the information that they gave us, there wasn't really their goal wasn't really to kill like the indigenous or get rid of them, or no, it was just to bring all the information. And of course they had their agenda of, okay, culturally we're going to impose this to the society, but at the end of the day, the cultures that we had here as indigenous, as well, mainly indigenous, weren't the best. So ultimately, the best culture won, and that's the culture that we have, where we are currently living. So I think improvement will start by changing the education system and implementing the real history of the Spain. I don't know how to call it in English, like el Imperio Español,
Mhm.
the Spain
The
Empire. I think that
conquistadors, the conquistadors.
the conquistadores, yes.
Yeah.
So I think that would be a good start. So because the way that it's been told right now is that those evil people came here, colonized us, And now we're creating resentments. And that they colonized us because they felt that they were superior in many ways. So they decided to bring the blacks, kill the indigenous, enslave the black, and it wasn't necessarily like that. So if you first look into the black legend, if that's how it's called, La Leyenda Negra, of the Spain history, and you learn how things really happened and not the way that it's been taught in Latin American, all of them, Latin American schools, that's when you can start shifting the mindset of, oh, it wasn't necessarily about race, it was more about status and power and money. You know, that sistema de castas, that it was implemented in Asia a lot, like in India. It
Mm-hmm.
was in a way implemented here, but not in the same way. It wasn't necessarily about race, it was more about status. And there was a lot of mix of Black, Indigenous, and Spaniards based on status. So when you really look into it, it wasn't the same sistema de casta that is still actually implemented back in India when it was purely about skin color and whitening of the whole thing. Here, it was a little bit different. I think that because that was back in the day when they colonized us. More recently, we had this other program of whitening of the society, but that was more recently in the last 100 years. I think the shift there really happened mentally for Black people and
You
Indigenous.
know, I've never heard that. I've never heard that. In the United States, they teach us pretty much the same thing that you just said. Like the English came to the
Mm-hmm.
United States and they killed the indigenous and brought the blacks as
I
slaves.
know because that happened. The English colonization was different. The Spaniards did a different thing here, but the English one, yeah, that was like the French thing that they were like, mm, what's the name of this? What's the word that I'm looking for? Like they were murderers, basically. They were ruthless. The Spaniards, it's different, and I would highly suggest you look into that. It's really interesting.
I'm gonna have to look into that because I've never heard that. That's interesting. So I'm gonna have to look into
Yeah.
that. Do you know who wrote that?
It's like a combination of like different people and books. So you just have to start like Google Leyenda Negra, like Black Legend of Spain history.
Okay, I'm gonna have to look that up because I would love to know who wrote those books and where they came from because that plays a big role. I know in the United States they're trying to get rid of the slave history and stop teaching it, but I think that they're doing it just so they can teach as if it didn't happen, which
Mm-hmm.
sounds similar to what you just described,
Mm-hmm.
but not the same. But it sounds similar as if they want to rewrite history.
Yeah, that happens a lot actually. Yeah, it happens in
Okay,
my country a lot with a history of our socialism.
okay, okay. So how has your dating experience been impacted by these societal views? And I don't know why I wrote that one twice, but have you navigated them in your personal life? Did I already ask you that?
I think so
I think I
earlier.
asked you. So,
Yeah.
what advice would you give to someone who is struggling with pressure to conform to similar societal expectations? Like
Mhm.
if they're struggling to actually believe a lot of these beliefs that's been pushed down their throat, what advice would you give to a young girl or a young man?
A young girl, a young man. I don't know. I think the struggles for men are different. I don't know if they would apply, but for girls, is to find an identity, and like avoid that identity to be your skin color. And once you find that identity, that for me, and this is very personal, is in Jesus. That's where my strength comes from. I know who I am because I'm a daughter of God, and I'm a daughter of God first, and I'm a human, and I'm not a skin color. And yes, you're probably going to struggle a little bit more, maybe to find like minded people or, people that maybe understand. But yeah, finding an identity that is solid and that is not as, you know, unstable as your skin color.
Wow.
Without
Okay.
understanding our background, of course. Like, yeah, you have to. We live in the world, so you have to understand our realities and our experiences and how they are influenced by our environment. We have to understand that, but don't let that to be your identity.
Yes. So Kenneth Johnson just became a new member. Thank you very much. Travel with EJ Wade says back from Costa Rica, Philippines, or Brazil next. I would never vouch for the Philippines, so I would say Brazil. Thank you for the super chat. So I'm gonna save my question for last. I'm gonna save my next question for
Okay.
last. So, in what ways have you actively resisted or challenged these stereotypes? It seems like we wrote the same questions back to back. You've already answered that one. So, how do you think men, particularly Afro Latin men, are affected by these ideologies in the context of dating? Like, what does their life look like since there are a lot of Afro Latinas that may think how you were taught to think? What is his daily life like?
You know, from what I've seen, uh, Afro Latinos, like men, they tend to be more open, to date black women. I've always find that I see a black man and they like it's not uncommon for me to see a black man with a black woman. Like I don't know, I don't. Maybe I haven't been exposed to a lot of black people either. So yeah.
Okay. I guess we might have to interview a Afro Latino to get the exact judgment on that. So, looking forward, how optimistic are you about the possibility of shifting these cultural norms? In other words, what do you think the future is like in the next 10 years, and what do you think it will take? What is the next step that must be done and repeated and practiced for this to change within the next 10 years?
In the next 10 years, I think conversation starters. I think with the rise of social media, a lot of people that are, I hate saying this, but are waking up in a sense to to the reality and not conforming to the beliefs that they acquire from their environments are starting to speak out more, and to in the next 10 years those people that are having babies trying to teach those values to their children, so in maybe 20, 30 years those mentalities start to shift. Is so I would say right now it's personal development, taking responsibilities for your own life, and start to deconstructing those old beliefs that were put there by society, start creating new ones, and then form families, and spread out, good values.
Okay, so let me ask you this:
Yeah.
where would you recommend Black American men that want to date Afro Latina women? Where would you recommend that they go? Like for me, it's Cali, Colombia.
Hmm.
It's Salvador or Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. Uh, shit, that's really it. That's where else would you recommend in South America?
But what is it that you want? You want to date a black person, or do you want to find a wife? What is it that you guys want?
Well, both. I mean, because even if you just wanted to hook up with them, like
That's anywhere.
I don't see. But with that, when I was in Montevideo and Buenos Aires, and I ran
Mm-hmm.
into black women, it's almost like they couldn't hear me talking to them. But when I went to Cali and Salvador, where there was plenty of black women, they had no, like they were just like normal people. Like they could hear me talking to them, and they were interested. But
Mm-hmm.
in other places, it was like they wanted to kind of show out a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess for either way, if they want to, where let me say this: where can they interact the best with Afro Latinas?
You're putting it hard because those are two different things. If you want a wife, and I I don't know if your audience wants that's what they want, but if you want a wife, you're gonna find it anywhere, anywhere. You're not gonna be like there are. What I'm trying to say with this is there are good people and bad people in every country, and I guess there are cultures that are better than other ones, but mainly in the Americas as a continent, you can find a wife anywhere. You just have to be a decent human being, a decent man. If you want to hook up, that's a different story. As a black man, I understand that there are struggles, and those struggles are mainly defined by how black people are seen in America. So go to countries where there are plenty of black communities where they're more welcoming in general. So yes, I would say definitely Colombia. I would say even in Central America, El Salvador, or even Venezuela. You can go to Venezuela. You can go to Brazil. Um, yeah, or
Okay.
even here in Lima, I've seen a few black men with like mestizas here. So
No, what we're talking about, no, just black men that want black women, not the
oh, what
mestizos. Like,
black? Oh, right, right. Yeah, the Peru was the only one that wouldn't be in that list. So yeah, um, Brazil, Colombia, El Salvador, um, Venezuela. Yeah.
okay, again, I would say I got the best result in Cali, Colombia, and Salvador by here, Brazil. So would you say you brought up Venezuela? HG chilling,
Yeah.
thank you for the follows, Cash App. Would you say that Venezuela was is it safe for somebody to go looking for that there right now?
Safe. I think you can do tourism there. Yeah. But I wouldn't live there just because of the social economic environment. But yeah, I think it's safe for you to do tourism. Yeah. It has changed in the last 5 years for sure. When I left Venezuela, it was a mess, and now it has changed. I wouldn't say it's a great place to live, but if you have the money, because it's also expensive, it's like going to New York. Um, but if you have the money and you like pretty girls, I guess.
So would you say that a lot of Afro Latinas are feminists more so than the mestizos?
Feminist. I think that there's a higher probability that they fall into feminism because of that narrative of you know being black, and that is usually that you hear it from a lot from the left and you know black pride, and there are different ideologies that go side to side, and when you fall into those pools of being proud about being black and victimizing yourself in a way, even though that probably wouldn't be the term that they use, but yes, those ideologies usually come in a package, and they tend to come in the same package as feminism.
Okay, makes sense.
It
Yeah,
could,
Maury,
it's a, yeah,
huh?
yeah, yeah.
No, he was just bringing up the fact because I told you I was getting rejected by a lot by the Afro Latinas on live, and
Mm,
just it was very uncalled for, very unusual, but not my problem. So the next super chat is from Sheedy. Says she is a lost buck, broken woman, very similar liar to many black women in America who hate themselves.
Last back broken. That's a lot. Yeah. I just
Yeah, there.
sometimes think like how how much pain do you have to be in your life to write that, and to say that publicly? That's just funny.
I don't know. I don't. I told. That's why there's a lot of people upset in the chat, and I don't know why.
Why
Like,
is that? Put more comments. I want to see what they're saying.
yeah, they're. I don't know, but that's usually when I bring black women on, everybody has a diaper that needs to be changed. So She said $5 for again for she doesn't know what she's talking about and it's crazy. 90% of black men won't be able to get a visa to travel to Venezuela. Terrible guest.
I don't think the visa issue is because you're black. It's just because Venezuela and the United States have, their problems, but it's not impossible. I didn't say it was easy to get in because I know there are some visa, uh, protocols that you have to, apply for or whatever. But yeah.
Yeah. If you guys have any more questions, I told you guys you need a super chat. We got about 950 people watching in between Twitter and YouTube. So, uh, yeah, I don't know. I mean, some people are just upset. They think that
What do they think? People that are like sending super chats, like what? Why are most people upset about?
they were upset with me because I said Brazil was 80% black when they liberated slaves, and I mean that's just.
But if
I mean,
it's a fact, why are you upset about something that happened a long time ago? It's
well,
just.
let me ask this: what American slave colony, whenever the slaves were liberated,
Mm,
when they feel that the whites outnumber the slaves? Like that didn't
what?
happen in Haiti, that didn't happen in the United States, that didn't happen in Brazil, that didn't happen in Argentina. There's
Mm,
more white people than the slaves. Like
yeah, well,
so, I
I
mean,
I didn't hear that.
yeah, I don't get it. Some of these dudes are just let me just call it it's bitch energy. Let me just say that. So do you have a few minutes to I mean it really is like I have patience so I can like sit here and just look, but like man, they're getting on my nerves with some of these comments. Uh do you
It's
uh
fine.
do you have time for somebody that wants to talk to you?
Sure.
Okay, because I know you say you gotta leave in a minute. So yeah, you guys she told me she had to leave at 3:30, which is in like 13 minutes. So if you're gonna call, I just dropped the link. You gotta make it
Oh, what
quick.
time is what time is over there?
Oh, 3:30 your time.
My time.
Oh, okay, well we got time then. So it's
Yeah,
three
this is fun.
yeah, it's like 3:18 right here. Yeah, it's plenty of bitch energy in the crowd. I'm glad some of you guys can see that. Like some of you
Should
guys
have brought a drink or something.
look. Yeah, they're mad because I'm to be honest with you, I do think it is a black chick because we just had an Afro, not an Afro, we just had a Colombian chick on in there. I mean, she got some people are gonna talk shit every day, but not like this.
That's
I
fine.
dropped
That
um
means that I'm stroking some chords, so that's good.
what's your views on white Jesus and Christianity carrying white supremacist aspects and ideologies from
Uh,
CJ?
I think I think you haven't read the Bible. If you think Jesus and Christianity is carrying white supremacist aspects or whatever ideologies, it's not. I am 100% sure that you've never read the Bible.
So what would you say it is? Because they're gonna want to know
Jesus
what you're
is Yeah, well, Jesus' message is clear. It's super simple. Just two commandments. Believe in the Lord. Like believe in the Lord above anything else. And the second one, love your brother as you love yourself. That's it. He didn't say anything about white people. That people are using God's word for whatever ideology that they're following. That's another thing. But Jesus' message is clear as day. We are brothers, regardless of our skin color. It's not we are brothers. Oh, the black people are brothers and the white people. No, no. We, as a planet, as a human race, we are brothers, and we have to love Him first. We have to love God first above anything else, and then we have to love our brothers as we love ourselves. And if we don't love ourselves, you can see it in the comments that they don't love themselves because they can't love other people.